I love that you like remembered Lewisburg in Urban Ag Week, because I think often folks think of Lewisburg as like we're not a big city like Pittsburgh and Philly and those kind of things. Yeah. But we are also not really truly like a totally rural space either. We're kind of in this in-betweenish that way.
Yeah, and we've seen across the state, that sort of the sensitivities to there are a lot of places have community gardens that aren't necessarily in urban centers, right? And what does that look like? We've seen some that are really educational focused, and some that are charitable entity focused, some are entrepreneurial in the sense of right. Some folks are doing things inside community spaces of for farmers markets and pay-as-you-can markets, right? We've seen all of that. So that's been cool.
Yeah.
This project's been going on for about 13 years now. And it's a really beautiful example of what a partnership between a town and a university can look like. So the borough of Lewisburg provides the land for free. And they do some of the bigger mowing, a couple different other like infrastructure maintenance kind of things for us. And then Bucknell University provides the staff, that's me, and also Teresa, our garden coordinator, and some student employees also who do some work out here so that we can run the programming of the community garden.
Sort of understanding the community garden aspects, your sort of vision for what the larger community looks like and where food and food access gardens fit, but also connections with the partners, right? So Bucknell, and you've talked about some of that. So just understanding some of those pieces, it helps us and the governor and team just better understand sort of food and food access. What do we advocate for and what the needs are when appropriators, as Senator Yaw will ask what the needs are. Just understanding that a little better helps us, I think, do a better job with the department. Right?
So one of the projects that I'm really excited that's forthcoming will be connecting, we've got a retirement community just past the creek and over the fields over there. But we've got that and then our community hospital across Route 15 that are disconnected from our community because there's no feasible way to walk here. And so I know a grant application is in to create a walking path that goes from there that really is a connector, so that when we talk about multi-generational and being able to have, this resource of people who need to connect and engage, why not have them come when the weather is nice and hang out at the community garden and give back and be involved in the community in a much larger way, rather than...
I always say that we're a community garden, and everyone wants to talk about the garden part, right? People ask me all the time, how many pounds of vegetables do you grow here? Where's it all going? And like last year we grew about 1,500 pounds of produce here, right? People love those facts. But the thing that's hard to convey, I don't have numbers for, are these amazing connections between people. Just last night we had volunteers working out here and a couple of the student employees, and working on planting beets together turned out to be a volunteer who's a retired person who used to be a family doctor, and a student who's pre-med. And they just started chatting, and I was like, you two, like, you're gonna figure out his whole future right here while you're planting beets, right? And they became good friends together. And there's a million of those kinds of interactions where people are connecting and getting to know one another. And just like you were saying, Kendi, like there's a lot of loss of these third spaces where people just get to meet in a way that's meaningful, that brings people together, that's different from like work, right? Or school. So all that said, the garden does three sorts of things. The one I just described is that community building part. So we host potluck events, communal like work party days where we all work on sort of the big open spaces of the garden together. The other two things that we do, one of them is the thing I think you all think about when you hear community gardens. We have rental plots. So there's about 40 square gardens that people in the community can rent. They grow their own vegetables or fruits for the season. One really cool thing about that is we have a number of folks who rent a garden plot for a season or two who've never gardened. And they join a community garden because they say, well, if I'm growing around all these other people, I'm bound to learn some things about gardening. And then they do. They get pretty good at it. And then they say, okay, I'm going to set this up in my yard. And then they move on and they open up a space for someone else to come in. And to me, that's a huge success of like teaching people just through like being with other people in the garden together how to grow food for themselves.